This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. He didn't have the time to study that vial, so he threw it to Yuan Gaohan. Yuan Gaohan looked at it a few times, but he did not seem to be interested in it. Compared with this, Yunxiao had too many things about arts and mystic artifacts that interested him. Pingying's face showed a strange expression and he stammered, "It's nothing. It's just a little jade person. It's just fun." "Oh." Yunxiao gave a casual "oh," then put it away and said, "It's really fun. Lend it to me for 70 or 80 years. Pingying wiped his sweat and hurriedly said, "Young Master Yun, to tell you the truth, that thing is the inheritance holy statue of the heavenly scorpion sect, which was used to pass down martial arts and cultivation methods. The martial technique I learned is called the Thunder Heart Fist, and it was passed down from this sacred elephant. Some martial arts techniques were too powerful and couldn't be recorded in books through ordinary words, nor could they be imprinted in jade slips with spiritual sense. They were recorded through some special materials. For example, the Great Realm Divine technique that Yunxiao had learned could only be inherited in the Divine Realm tablet and could not exist in the world." "I see. I have no use for that thing." Yunxiao threw the jade statue back to Pingying. He had seen the Thunderheart Fist he used before. It was extremely powerful in the eyes of ordinary warriors, but it was nothing to him. Pingying was stunned for a moment. The most valuable thing in his eyes had been ignored. He stood there in a daze, not knowing what to say. Yunxiao ignored him and sat down cross-legged to meditate. Pingying's eyes flashed with a hint of fierceness, his expression dark and uncertain. Yunxiao's courage was beyond his expectations, for he had dared to meditate and cultivate in front of him without any warning. Both he and Shangguan Yuan had a serious look on their faces. They exchanged a glance, and Shangguan Yuan shook her head slightly, indicating that he should not act rashly. Holding back the urge to slap Yunxiao to death, Pingying flew hundreds of meters away with Shangguan Yuan before sitting down and cultivating. They did not dare to get too close to Yunxiao. Yunxiao entered the Divine Realm tablet and took back the little man, which was neither gold nor jade, from Yuan Gaohan. After looking at it for a while, he injected his divine sense into it and studied it carefully, only to find that it was indeed strange. Although this little person didn't have a face, it was refined to completely imitate the structure of a human body. The 5 internal organs, 6 hollow organs, and hundreds of extraordinary meridians were all present. This kind of refining technique was definitely the work of a 9th-tier alchemist, and no alchemist below the 9th tier could have such exquisite control. His spiritual sense followed the small person's meridians and continued to extend down, finally entering his dantian. However, it suddenly tightened and found a flash of golden light, so vast that it could not be seen. "Strange." Yunxiao muttered to himself, then transformed into his human form and appeared in the little man's dantian, where he began to search around. All of a sudden, the golden light in the entire space darkened and became extremely dull. Wisps of azure qi began to appear, which transformed into lightning that flashed incessantly within. What powerful lightning! Could it be that this little person contains the wood essence? Yunxiao was shocked. The thunderbolt was originally transformed from the second wood qi, and little Qing had been through tens of thousands of years, and it was only transformed with the help of the power of Noah's ship, which was infinitely close to the power of the origin. If they were caught and refined into the wood qi, they would be the same as the breathing earth, the true phoenix fire, and the immemorial astral wind. He looked at the flashing lightning around him in surprise. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky and landed directly on his soul form, clearing up his sea of consciousness. The originally calm spiritual altar and sea of consciousness suddenly became filled with lightning and thunder, blasting away all distracting thoughts. The entire spiritual altar was completely bathed in the rain of lightning. Yunxiao's body trembled, and he immediately felt a spell being forcibly imprinted into his mind under the bombardment of the thunderbolt. He immediately focused his mind and allowed the lightning to wreak havoc in his spiritual altar as he silently comprehended. In the outside world, only a few breaths of time had passed, but in the spiritual altar and sea of consciousness, it was as if several hours had passed. The power of thunder and lightning also gradually weakened. The tiny person's dantian quickly regained its calm. The golden light rose again, but it was no longer as sharp as before. Instead, it was gentle. Yunxiao's human form dissipated from the little man and condensed in the divine realm tablet, a thoughtful look on his face. When he was in it just now, he had indeed received a strange cultivation technique. This cultivation technique did not have a name, but it was a movement technique that achieved the effect of teleportation through the power of lightning. If cultivated to the extreme, one could even temper one's body into a body of lightning, turning into lightning just like Little Green. The only flaw was that one had to have the assistance of the lightning element or the second wood chi, or else the effects would be minimal. The results were also related to the strength of the supporting elements and one's own talent. According to the effects of this cultivation technique, it was indeed a bit abnormal to cultivate the body into a body of lightning. But that was the power after he had mastered it, and it was a little useless for Yunxiao now, so he could not use it for a short time. Forget it. We'll talk about it when we find more lightning in the future. There is indeed some Yi-Wood Qi in the Divine Realm tablet, which is some fragments of Little Qing's original body that I snatched. However, it needs to be used to repair the Divine Realm tablet, so it must not be used. He sighed and stopped thinking about it. Repairing the Divine Realm tablet was the top priority at the moment. At the moment, Yuan Gaohan was using the Phoenix Divine Fire to temper the Northern Heaven Cold Star Iron. Although Yunxiao had taught him part of the power of rules in the steel, it was still very difficult for him to use it. However, the power of the divine fire shocked him, and he was also overjoyed, enjoying the feeling of controlling 10th-tier flames. Gu Yuesheng, on the other hand, had been forced to improve the alchemy recipes of the Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce. With his knowledge as a 7th-tier alchemist, it was not difficult for him to do so, and he could ask Yuan Gaohan for help if he had any questions. Yuan Gaohan was also happy to answer. He really appreciated Gu Yuesheng. Those questions were often critical, and he explained them in great detail, which benefited Gu Yuesheng a lot. Yunxiao stood in the air and conjured the Great Realm Divine Technique in front of him. He felt that he could not refine the Divine Realm tablet at all. The only thing he could do now was to pour as much spirit chi as possible into it and use the Divine Realm tablet's own healing power to let it repair itself, but the speed was so slow that it was a little worrying. The millions of mid-grade primordial stones he had gotten from Pingyi were all used up in one go. It was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood, and the spiritual chi in the entire steel did not improve at all. Why don't we go back to Yanwu after the Martial Arts and Martial Arts Conference of the Merchant Union? With the abundant spirit chi there, it's no weaker than the 7 superpowers, so it should be the fastest way to repair the Divine Realm tablet. Yunxiao put away his thoughts and gently pointed at the light in his hand. Then, an armor appeared from his body, emitting a dark light. The surface of the armor was made of some unknown metal, and there was no fluctuation of spirit energy except for the black light. Let's repair this thing first. It'll give us more assurance when we fight Zhang Linghua tomorrow. A sect leader, even if he was a half-step martial emperor, would more or less have a trump card. It would be a huge joke if we were to die in a moment of carelessness. He continued to cast spells into the Devil Sky armor. With his current strength, it was extremely difficult for him to repair a 9th-tier profound armament. Moreover, the Devil Sky armor was still lacking the most important thing. Yunxiao looked at the ground. On the calm ground, he could clearly feel an external force surging. Although it was suppressed under the ground, it was unending and difficult to destroy. Are we really going to use that power? He pondered for a moment, and with a light shout, a crack appeared on the ground below. A mass of black gas surged up and spread out at an extremely fast speed. Very quickly, half of the ground was dyed a thick black ink. Humph, you dare to be so arrogant in my territory. Yunxiao snorted coldly as he performed an incantation gesture with one hand and pointed out a finger. A sharp wind suddenly appeared in the sky above the ground. The monstrous demonic chi was immediately stopped from spreading, and gathered in the center under the wind. This was the attack that the great demon had used when they were fleeing in the outer space. As long as the devil chi didn't die, it could only be suppressed under the Divine Realm tablet by his elemental power. Once there was any gap, it would escape on its own as if it had a spirit. It's my first time using devilish chi to refine devilish armor. Yunxiao chuckled a few times, then threw the demonic sky armor down into the monstrous demonic aura, where it immediately glowed with a dazzling black light. The demonic sky armor seemed to come alive in an instant, floating in the demonic sea. As Yunxiao continued to cast spells, the monstrous fiend energy began to pour into the armor at an extremely fast speed. Yunxiao frowned. The armor seemed to have a very strong self-healing ability, and as long as there was enough fiend energy, it could be reborn. He gradually slowed down the incantation gesture in his hand, but the devilish armor's absorption speed did not change. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, all the devilish chi on the ground had been absorbed by it, leaving no trace behind. After the demonic sky armor absorbed all the demonic chi, it released an astonishingly powerful pressure. The entire space began to shake because of its existence. Yunxiao's face flickered. He could clearly feel the mark he had left in the armor gradually disappearing. It was as if the armor had a spirit of its own, and it wanted to erase his refinement imprint. Impudent. You still dare to cause trouble in my divine realm tablet. Yunxiao slowly raised his hands. They seemed to be frozen in the air, but in an instant, they turned into countless afterimages, and a strange light appeared in his palms, gradually condensing into 3 golden tadpole-like characters that flickered constantly. The moment the 3 symbols appeared, the space immediately stabilized. The demonic sky armor seemed to have sensed something, and it immediately turned into a black light and fled into the distance. Yunxiao chuckled and said softly, "So close, yet so far." His figure disappeared in an instant and appeared directly in front of the demonic sky armor. 3 golden tadpole-like characters in his hands were pressed down in the air. Ming King Seal. The demonic chi that was surging up from the demonic sky armor was directly dispersed by the 3 ancient scriptures. The entire armor emitted a bright golden light and stopped in the air. It no longer felt like it was going to go berserk. The remaining connection between Yunxiao and the armor was still like a silk thread, looming and about to break at any moment. This armor is indeed strange. I don't even dare to wear it anymore. It's safer to refine you again. Yunxiao summoned his divine flame and burned the demonic sky armor. After the armor was hit by the seal, it stopped completely and let the divine fire burn and refine it. Nothing unusual happened to it, and it soon appeared in front of Yunxiao as if it had been renewed. The demonic dragon's voice suddenly rang out, "I think it's better not to use this armor. It just feels weird." Yunxiao stared at the armor for a while, then said in a serious voice, "It's just a mere 9th tier profound armament. I don't believe that it can overturn the heavens." He pointed with his finger and the armor immediately turned into a ray of light and was absorbed into his body. He poured his soul power into check and only felt at ease when he found no problems. He immediately stood in the air and began to adjust his own consumption. Soon, he heard Pingying's call, and his transformed body disappeared from the Divine Realm tablet and returned to his original body. When Yunxiao opened his eyes, he saw that Pingying and Shangguan Yuan had become impatient. This refining process took a day and a night. It was already the 3rd day, the battle to determine the top 10. Yunxiao thought of Mei Dong. He wondered what kind of results the little girl had achieved, but it was no longer important. Under the morning light, the Big Dipper sect looked a little dusky. Very soon, the weather would change. Yunxiao suddenly felt a sense of pride in his chest, and he let out a long howl that soared into the sky. The power of a 5-stars martial grandmaster burst out at this moment and instantly rose to the peak. He was stuck at the bottleneck for a long time and could not break through. Pingying and Shangguan Yuan exchanged a glance, both seeing the shock in each other's eyes. Although Yunxiao was only exuding the strength of a 5-stars martial grandmaster, which was far inferior to them, for some reason, they felt a sense of powerlessness that was difficult to resist. "I wish young Master Yun success today." Pingying forced a smile and said. Yunxiao smiled and said nothing. The 3 of them immediately turned into 3 beams of light and headed toward the base of the Big Dipper sect. This place was already within the mountain's protective formation. Every martial artist who entered had passed the inspection. From time to time, there would be a flash of light. They were all flying to watch the competition on the last day. In order to avoid trouble, Yunxiao and the other two landed from a distance and walked up. The intersect competition was held on the largest mountain of the Big Dipper sect. 10 huge arenas were set on the top of the mountain like chess pieces, and the 9 arenas were all built with 4th-tier materials, diamond and jade. It was said that the North Scorpion sect had been in existence since the founding of the sect, and it was considered a high-end, magnificent, and high-grade sect in the entire heavenly martial arts realm. Even if it was a grade 4 material, in thousands of years of wind and rain, it had also been damaged countless times and repaired countless times. The various traces of repair on it were enough to prove the powerful history of the North Scorpion sect. Under the layout of 9 dragons surrounding a pearl, the largest square ring in the middle was made of 6th-grade sparkling flying stones, which made people gasp in amazement and even envy. Although the jade light flying stone was considered a 2nd-grade material within the 6th tier, it was enough to cast tens of thousands of 6th-tier profound armaments. This kind of skill, even the 7 super forces didn't have it. Fortunately, this jade light flying stone was only a 6th-grade item, and its use was limited. Otherwise, it would definitely not have been able to remain for long. Some of the small sects that were peaking didn't have the strength, and the super forces didn't care about it, so they didn't have the face to snatch it. This was why this huge stage, made of jadeite flying stones, had been preserved to this day. In front of the ring, there was an exquisite viewing platform floating in the air. The stage wasn't big. It was jade white in color and in the shape of a semicircular fan. It seemed to be able to accommodate less than 100 people. It was obvious that only those who had reached a certain status were qualified to go up. 2 martial emperor-ranked disciples of the Big Dipper sect stood guard on both sides of the viewing platform to prevent unauthorized people from entering. A large number of cultivators had long been squeezed below, bustling with discussion, all kinds of lecherous expressions appearing on everyone's faces, saliva flying everywhere, each boasting. "Hey, brother pheasant, why are you holding a green hat in front of me all day long?" "Sigh, to be honest. Brother Haonan, I saw a brother's wife having an affair a few days ago, do you think I should tell him?" "Fuck, there's such a thing? Of course I have to say it. However, Ingluo, as a brother, it's really not good for you to ask. Otherwise, your brother will lose face." AI. "Yeah. That's why I've been hanging a green hat in front of him all day, hoping that he'll understand what I mean." There were also quite a few people who had placed bets on the top 10 most popular people and the top 3 most popular people. Yunxiao listened for a while and found that the top 3 candidates were basically Chengyu and Shikaishan, who were basically guaranteed to be in the top 2. As for the third candidate, people had different opinions, and few people called her Mei Dong. He didn't see Shou Wei in the crowd. He had probably gone down the mountain. He didn't even see Luo Shinran's group, so he didn't know what that group of people was doing. Yunxiao scanned everyone with his divine sense. None of them had a high strength, and he could tell that there were only a few martial emperors among them, so he felt that there was no problem. In that case, the backup arranged by Tan Dijuan should be on the viewing platform. He looked over and saw a ray of light flying across the sky and landing on the platform. 2 figures walked out from the light, both of them wrapped in black robes. The 2 martial emperor's disciples who were on guard hurriedly stepped forward. The black-robed man in the lead took out a token and waved it. The 2 disciples immediately retreated in shock, bowed, and said respectfully, "Elder Sima." The black-robed man walked straight to one of the seats and sat down. The person behind him stood on his left. Both of them were covered in black robes, so their faces could not be seen clearly. There was naturally no lack of meddlesome people below, and they all sent their divine senses up, but they were all blocked by an invisible force. They knew that their strength was far from that of the other party, so they retreated in the face of difficulties. However, one of the senses passed through the defenses extremely quickly and passed by the 2 of them, immediately drawing their attention. Elder Sima's eyes instantly turned in Yunxiao's direction. 2 bright lights flickered in his black robe, but he could not lock on to who it was from the crowd. "There's an expert down there," he said. The black-robed man behind him bent down slightly and whispered in Elder Sima's ear. Soon, Elder Sima's eyes narrowed again. This time, he stared straight at Yunxiao, as if he wanted to see through him. The divine sense just now was Yunxiao's, and he had confirmed that the black-robed man behind him was Luo Xinran. This group of people should have come for the treasure. He heard from Shui that they were all itinerant cultivators, and he did not know why they had been taken in by Elder Sima. And at this moment, Luo Xian Ran must have told Sima Feng his identity, which was why Sima Feng's sharp eyes were on him. He snorted and slightly rotated the Great Expansion Divine Technique, immediately flicking the spiritual sense away from his body. It was no longer able to enter the 5-meter radius around him. Sima Feng's pupils constricted. He grabbed the armrest of his chair with his right hand and made a deep claw mark on the tiger head armrest, which was made of high-grade alchemy materials. A circle of faint primordial energy rippled from his right hand. It was enough to show how shocked he was at the moment. Although Sima Feng's eyes were fixed on Yunxiao, the man was perfectly fine and looked indifferent and lazy. However, it made Ping Yingyi and Shangguan Yuan, who were behind him, feel uneasy. "Young Master Yun, does the black-robed elder know you?" Ping Yingyi asked in a low voice. Yunxiao nodded and said, "Yes, the man behind him is the skinny man who attacked us that night. His name is Luo Xinran. I beat him up that night."
Ah.
It's them. Both Ping Yingyi and Shangguan Yuan revealed resentful expressions. Originally, they had gone through a lot of trouble to sneak into the Big Dipper sect. If they hadn't encountered that group of boorish hooligans, they wouldn't have exposed their identities. But then again, if he had not exposed his identity, he would not have been able to find out the secret of the treasure map, and this trip would have been in vain. Thinking of this, the two of them calmed down a little. However, his eyes were still filled with ruthlessness. If he had the chance, he would definitely find Luo Xinran and take revenge. Yunxiao ignored Sima Feng's gaze. He was not afraid of exposing his strength. Since he was going to assassinate Zhang Linghua soon, the whole city would know about it in a few hours, so it didn't matter if he was a little arrogant now. Soon, rays of light began to fly from the sky one after another. These people who dared to fly arrogantly were all people of status, and they directly rushed to the viewing platform. Most of them were the Big Dipper sect's elders and the sect masters of some small sections. They were all familiar with each other and constantly greeted each other, trying to get closer. Moreover, they were well aware of the seats on the viewing platform. Where they should sit and where they couldn't sit, there was an extremely strict strength level. Suddenly, a few figures appeared on the viewing platform, surprising Yunxiao. The man in the lead was Elder Lu, who had been guarding the gate earlier, followed by two martial emperor disciples. One of them was the middle-aged man in yellow who had been killed by Yunxiao with one move. Not only did they look exactly the same, but their cultivation base was also a 1-star martial emperor. A transformation simulation technique? Yunxiao asked in surprise. The transformation simulation technique was also a secret technique, and it was extremely mystical. If Yunxiao had not killed the middle-aged man in the yellow robe himself, he would not have been able to tell the difference with a casual inspection. After a careful examination, Yunxiao found something strange. The middle-aged man in yellow looked too ordinary, and his face lacked the arrogance and superiority that his real body had. This was something that could be seen on every Big Dipper sect disciple's face. However, the yellow-robed middle-aged man's face was calm and steady. When she saw the news of a dog being killed today, she burst into tears and felt depressed for the whole day. A dog that had been living with a homeless man was held by 2 police officers and then beaten to death. The homeless man sat in a withered position, watching the police kill his companion in front of him. There was only helplessness in his eyes. The only thing the homeless had the ability to do was to hold on to it and not let go. The dog's body, on the other hand, always faced its owner. Tai was really crying and calling for everyone to boycott eating dog meat.